Did
Yeah.
they both have this concept of an American dream, or like your dad, was it just sort of like, no, we're just here to work and have a better life? But, or was it something to aspire to in this country for them?
hmm
Like, were they like seeking something like that, or was it just survival?
Yeah. I mean, my mother's is more the American dream. She actually moved to California to be an actress, which I didn't
Oh,
know until I
yeah?
was much older. I wasn't fully aware of that until I was
Huh.
already an actor. Once I was an actor already, then it became apparent. Like, yeah, you used to joke about your Oscar all the time, actually, but I didn't know you genuinely moved here to be an actress, you
Dreamt
know?
of that. Huh.
And she was like, yeah, but, you know, when you have kids, they become your whole life. And my father, when he was a young boy, would, there's so many stories of him being essentially a director
Hmm.
as a young kid. But once they got to America, it was like, do what you can to survive, you know, and they ran businesses and clothing stores and they would follow the profit. They were like, oh, this will make a profit. Let's go make money and, you know, create a life. And so that was sort of the way they were raising us. And, or at least my father specifically would be like, you need to have good grades, get a degree, get an education, because they couldn't do that in America.
Yeah.
And they are being sold the same concept. Like, hey, if you get a degree in America, you have a better paying job, better house, better healthcare, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. So they're just like, hey, kids, we can't do that. We have to run these businesses to get you through life. You guys can now go to college and get good degrees and stuff. And so I wasn't aware of what the American dream was until, you know, like high school and becoming more conscious of that concept. And then realizing like, oh, that's why they're so pressing about these
Yeah.
standards they have. That's why they care so much. They see it as a way, they see all of their life's work as the door opening for us to walk through, which is the
Yeah.
American dream.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that's so interesting. Being a first generation American to two
Yeah.
different cultures of immigrants, both of them sharing an idea about what it is to be living the American dream and then having to fulfill or being sort of obliged to fulfill this
Yeah.
because they've opened the door for you. You're like, or person.
Yeah. No, no, that's fine.
You're just kind of like, oh, I guess like I need to do that for them. Like, but didn't they do that for me so I could just do me? And it's like, oh, okay, this is an interesting identity balance. Like, how much of your
Yeah.
life do you live for someone else, the people who raised you, you know? And
Right. And when does it become your own and you
hmm
let go of the expectation? Is that why you quit playing tennis and went into economics?
no, tennis thing. Once I fell into tennis, my parents realized there was a very different fervor behind that.
Mm.
They noticed, you know, my distractedness, my everything that was so fleeting about me. So like, like one thing to the next, bored of this, bored of that, video game here, no video game there. All of that just sort of vanished. Tennis became this sole focus in my life. It was, I slept with a racket in my hand. I woke up
Hmm.
early before school to watch tennis, play tennis, record tennis. Would come home late because I'd stay after practice to play more, come home, keep playing tennis. My mom forced me to go shower, to sleep in time, to wake up, and I would wake up early and play tennis anyway. And it just was like clear that I was obsessed and had this vision to be a professional tennis player. And the first couple years, you know, because it's a very financially pressing sport. First couple years, I just kind of had to learn on my own off the internet, and they were like I, you know, I had rackets and gear, like I wasn't without anything, but we couldn't
Yeah.
get like tennis lessons at the country club, and there wasn't many coaches in the city at the time. But after a few years of playing, they were like, okay, you're very serious. We're gonna find a way to get you some lessons. So we found a coach, and then my senior year, they were saving up to buy me a car, my own car. And, you know, that's a big deal. You know, like, oh, wow, my parents are going to get me a car. So most people don't get a car.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, hey, like, And then but then they started sending me to this tennis summer camp that I would go to like a week or two at a time. And then I got asked to be on a touring team with them, and it was costing a certain amount of money, which was close to the amount of money it would cost to live at the academy for a semester. It was like a 3-week trip or the academy for a semester to train.
Yeah, to train.
And it was like, my parents kind of put it up to me like, first of all, this whole thing is very costly. This is like a once in a lifetime experience to go to Wimbledon with this touring team you were selected with and meet all these blah, blah, blah. But it's only a few weeks. Then there's this other experience where you could go and train at the academy for a semester and better your chances at getting a college scholarship and one day going pro. And it was so obvious for me. I was like, the academy, that's way more tennis. That's way better tennis. Like, I'll go to Wimbledon someday. I'd rather play there. Like, it was like so clear to me. And it was like a whole, like, all right, Eman, we're going to invest in you here because we see that this is all you could ever dream of. That was so big. I remember that was so big. I cried when they told me. Still makes me emotional because it meant so much. And yeah, so they sent me to this academy for a semester, and I ended up getting a college scholarship for a couple years and playing tennis, and it was paid for, which was great because we couldn't afford college. And by the time I was getting to college, so that paid for a couple years of college, and it gave me like a life. Like, I taught tennis for money the entire time I was looking to be an actor, and never had to get like another type of job, bartending or waiting or whatever other job you might want to have that's flexible for acting. So I was doing that. And then when I got to college and played a couple of years, it made it very evident that I had such a gap in my technical foundation from those formative first years of learning off of the internet, that I couldn't close that gap in the time I had left to play in college. It was clear.
Right.
It was like, I'm not losing because I don't get the game. I'm not losing because I'm not the fittest on the court. I'm not losing. I'm losing because, technically speaking, I can't even hit half the shots this person hits. So I hit the first half and I set myself up for success. And then I don't know how to hit the second half of shots that win you the rest of the points. And it was just like, I'm always playing defense. I'm never the aggressor. I'm never in control of a point. You can't win like that versus the best players. And so I just sort of had to walk away and with like, okay, I'm not going to go pro at this rate. And if I stay competitive, I won't have time to change all my technique and work from the ground up again to one day eventually go pro again. So it was kind of like, do I keep playing college at some smaller school, or do I go and have like the regular American college experience at a big university? And so that's why I stopped playing tennis, because it was sort of a crossroad.
Yeah. Interesting. For you to have that sort of that self-awareness and that sort of honesty with yourself at that age is really rare and commendable. I think a lot of times we get caught up in ego, and I think that being able to look at ourselves objectively in the situation that we're in is really difficult, especially at a young age. It's hard enough for me now